All right. Well, good evening, Logos community family. This is Pastor Jeff, another Wednesday night live. I have not done one, I think, in the last week or two. Have really missed you, but really something very kind of exciting, important to talk about tonight, and with one of my favorite people in town. So with that, I'd love, Juan, for you to introduce yourself and just kind of share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Juan C. And you can call me Juan if you want to. I prefer Juan C. I teach guitar around town, guitar and drums and music in general around town. I also do chapel at several different churches. And my goal has always been to just use music to reach out to people and maybe be able to have a conversation with people. So I'm very happy to be here. And I thank y'all for tuning in.
So Juan, I kid you about this, but there's some truth to it that I have often said. If Mayor Boswell decided not to take another term, that you, I think, would be a shoo-in for mayor of Harlingen. I mean, you are that guy. You've taught my own son guitar. You've taught many people in town music, and I run into you all the time in Starbucks, and everyone is either slapping you on the back or talking to you. And so I'm only half kidding that I think you could run for mayor and win. I'm not a musician. I really have very little musical talent, but I've hung around with enough musicians that will talk about being with a guy that has hang. And I'm sure you know that term. And I remember asking somebody one time, what does that mean? They're like, hey, that means someone and you just love to hang out in the studio with. You can joke with, you can play with. They're just fun to be around. You have hang, even for as a non-musician. I know you have hang. So I love being around you, and so. But I want to get right to the point of this interview. So I watched, as many did yesterday and the last couple of days, this video of George Floyd, and it's one of those videos that I think. You think I shouldn't watch it because I'm literally watching a man lose his life, and yet I think we need to watch it. And I noticed you posted something on Facebook, and then I'm mowing my grass last night, and I'm thinking, we need to talk about this. Lord, who could I bring in to help me talk about this? And I feel like the Lord brought you to mind, Juan. And so I would, just kind of raw emotion. As you've heard the story, you watched the video, what did that evoke in you?
Well, I'll tell you, and for those of you who don't know me, I don't ever post these types of things on my Facebook page or social media. I just don't. I stay in the middle. I focus on other things. But I saw this particular picture, and just talking about it right now, it just brought forth a lot of pain. It brought forth a lot of anger. I see people all the time just kind of excusing this type of behavior because maybe he did this or maybe he did that. And so for me to post it was huge. It was huge, but I didn't care. I needed to post it because this was the one where I was like, I need to say something. I know a lot of people, I just need to let people know that this was a hurtful thing to watch. And so, yes, I watched the video, and it was beyond just having the knee on the neck. It was the other people around that were pleading, get off of his neck. And there was one particular scene where I looked at the officer, and he had what to me was a smirk on his face. His hands was in his pocket, and he had a smirk, and he wasn't getting off that guy's neck. Even when he was clearly unconscious, he stayed on the neck, and that was painful. That was painful. And it is my reality. It's my reality. It can happen to me at any given time. I realize this. And so that's why I was put up there. And I don't even regret it. I needed to say something.
So Juan, you said that sometimes and I think really one of the reasons that the Lord brought you to mind is you're not the guy, I don't think, that has a Black Power bumper sticker. You're not out every time a person of color is arrested protesting police brutality or saying it was obviously racism. You're not that guy. and yet, man, you felt compelled, I think, there's something different, man. And I'm not sure if it's that this is just the last kind of in a string of things that we've seen over the last couple of years, or if, I think for me it was that just seeing that guy's neck, hit the knee on the neck, and there just felt something, I don't know, more a little different, or just, I don't know, it was different.
Well, and on my post, there was actually a picture of Kaepernick. I know people have very different ideas about his protest, and it said, which knee is worse or something like that. But that him doing his protest was because of this type of stuff. So it took me back to when I was a kid, and we always had a picture of Martin Luther King on our wall. We always had this picture of him, and I didn't really know why as a child he was on our wall. I didn't. My father's African American, my mother is Puerto Rican, but he was on the wall, and my dad never really talked about that type of stuff. But it was another situation of a nonviolent approach to protesting that it just kind of boiled over. And I'm very fortunate in some ways because I'm not intimidating. I'm not very dark skinned. I jokingly say I'm ethnically vague, and I talk like a country boy. I mean, that's where I grew up. But you're reminded of your place in society all the time. I think it's called covert racism, where things are just harder to achieve because you're not the right color. And it's people may not think we have a voice because my wife is a dentist, and we do okay. We do okay. But take that away, and we're just like everybody else. And it's when you're reminded of this, it's tough. And this was just a very graphic reminder. And it made me wonder, how many times has this happened when there was no video camera present? And then you have zero voice in these types of things, because at that point, he's just somebody who was a criminal, and he deserved it. And that's just, it's too much. It's just too much.
Yeah, I'm worried already that they're trying to, find out all the guys, how the guy maybe had unpaid parking tickets and when he was 16, right. Or, it seems to be that thing of, okay, nobody is presenting this guy for sainthood. That is separate from what we all watch. And I'm hearing people saying, wait for evidence. Video is evidence.
Right.
And
right.
So, but talk a minute, Juan, has there been something does society, because you mentioned, you run probably in middle-class circles. You haven't been the guy that's out there, hey, fight the power. Is there something that has kind of trained you, like, hey, man, just kind of run in your lane. Don't protest every time something pops up. Don't be that guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, we live in a small town, and this goes farther back than that, but just it would be very difficult for me to do what I do, to move in the circles that I move, if I am posting Black Power everywhere. And that's not even the way I am. I don't, it's not simply a Black thing. It's not a Hispanic thing. It's everything. I don't know how old most of y'all are, but I grew up watching cartoons in which Asians were presented with very slanted eyes and very buck teeth. You would watch the Looney Tunes and you see Sambo, Black Sambo, and very inappropriate images of basically yourself. And so you're trained that this is just the way it is. The place where I grew up was LaPorte, Texas. And right up the street, I don't know, 10 miles, was a place called Pasadena. Y'all may remember Pasadena, Gillies. Gillies was in Pasadena. And you could open the phone book, and there it was in the phone book, KKK headquarters. You could call their headquarters in the phone book. And even now when I'm driving through Pasadena, I'm like looking around like, okay, what do I do? What's going to happen? Should I be here? And So you're just kind of, experiences through life teach you that you have to always be on the lookout. You always have to be. I was talking to my wife this morning, and she said it's kind of like those two cells in your body when another, like a cancerous cell comes in. You got to be ready to deal with whatever's coming at you at any given moment. And it's really easy to downplay it if you don't experience it.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's there.
I remember, Juan, I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, kind of the center for busing and desegregation. And, I remember hearing all the bad jokes. And I remember, I think sometimes that we believe that like the hardcore racism was so long ago. I remember driving with a friend to the mountains of Tennessee where his dad grew up. And he said, and I don't know if it was as late as the 70s or 80s, where there was still a sign in this small Tennessee town, if you're black, do not be in this town at sundown.
Sundown, that's right.
That
happens in Texas.
And so I think that, we think, well, man, that was in the 70s or 80s. In the scope of history, that's not that long ago.
No.
But I do want to, I want you to speak a minute about, because I did grow up and there were still kind of race fights in high school. I went to a high school that was probably 45% African-American. There were kind of, some race fights and stuff that I remember friends using the N-word. I didn't particularly grow up, my house didn't do that. And so now, decades later, I can say, I think that I don't see that kind of overt, I don't hear those jokes. And when if someone were to tell a joke, I think in most places in society now, people would be stunned and like correct someone. And I guess the point I'm getting is that I think that a lot of people, Juan, that you and I both know, watched that video perhaps, or have seen similar things in the last few weeks and are horrified. And they have asked, maybe they do an honest reflection in their life. They've asked the Lord to search their heart. And they said, Lord, if there be any racist, bone in me, please expose it. And they can honestly say, hey, I don't think there is. I love Juan. Juan teaches my son or daughter music. I would have my daughter spend the night at his house. And they say, and they really mean, I honestly do not think that I am racist. But there's a next step. And so I want you to talk about that, those who really aren't personally racist, but can still be blind to something else. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that?
Yes. A couple of years ago, I was taking my daughter to camp, and this gentleman said, Juan, can you really say that there's still racism? Isn't racism gone? And it was about 4 or 5 years ago. And he says, we have a black president now. It's over. And I couldn't even reply because I'm looking at him. I'm like, you have no idea. It's just kind of gone underground a little bit. Lately, it's kind of really risen up, it seems. But we all have friends out there who use the N-word. I know that they're there. So many times since I'm not like those other people, they say, it might slip out here and there. It's happened multiple times in my life. But I know even in this town that it's been used in reference to me, not in my face, but behind my back. And I think that it's not enough to just say, well, I'm not that way. There needs to be a correction. There needs to be this is not acceptable in my house. This is not acceptable around me. We may run in social circles or business, but I don't want you saying this stuff. And the more people who kind of step up, because unfortunately, if you're a minority, you're just not going to have the power to do that. You can try, but you're going to be labeled a militant. You're going to be labeled a troublemaker, a problem. And a lot of people, many more people now, they are like, oh, that's just horrible. But it's that next step. I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and she was telling me that her husband just says, well, I don't understand, and it doesn't affect me, so I'm good. You know, that's no longer, that's not something we can do. That's not. It needs to be actually talked about like we're doing right now. It needs to be discussed, and it needs to be pointed out, because even in my small town, I was on Facebook one day, and somebody had posted something about Obama, and it said, "Happy birthday, Obama." And it had a watermelon, it had fried chicken, it had orange drink or red drink, and he thought it was hilarious. And I said, dude, no, that's totally inappropriate. And he was just mortified. Why would you say that I'm putting racist stuff? I'm not. He had no idea, because that's the way he was brought up. There's a buddy of mine in town here who told me that the N-word for people these days is to be called racist. You know, it just needs to be these behaviors that we do. And I'm not even saying I'm innocent. We all have things that we say and we do, but it just needs to be pointed out when it occurs. And that's the toughest thing, because you don't want to be seen as uncool. You don't want to be seen as some kind of martyr. You don't. You just want to say hi to somebody, but it happens. It just needs to be pointed out. And I don't know how you can impress that upon people, because that's very difficult to go against the grain.
Yeah.
I go against it every day, but it's very difficult. You have to be a certain mentality to go against that grain.
Yeah. Talk, Juan, a little more. You alluded to this, and then, yes, I think last night or this morning when we spoke, you said, man, this is super emotional. Man, help us, like, man, just as a like man, as a father, thinking of your daughter and unleashing her into the world on her own. I mean, what do you feel like? What do you feel that I might miss?
When you wake up in the morning and you really have to, you don't spend a lot of time thinking, but it's always there. It's always, where am I going to go? Where's my daughter going to go? That someone can't control whatever feelings they have, and they attempt to hurt her or even say the N-word. I mean, I'm still waiting for her to be called the N-word. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, people like to say it a lot. They've changed the ending of it to make it seem cool, but it's still a very hurtful word, very painful word. And so when my family when we go in different places, I find myself having to be this ultra protector. It's underground, but when it has to come out, it will come out. And I'm actually afraid of myself if a situation like that happens, because it's literally, as you can see, a life or death situation. A good example is last year, my father passed away. So we had this dream of taking his ashes and spreading it on the family property up there in East Texas. Well, it was down a long, winding road. So we get there, it's my brother and my sister and myself, and we're saying our prayers, and we're just bonding as a family. And this vehicle drives by real slow, pulls up about, 100 yards up the road, and stops and just sits there looking at us. Now, that could have just been a good neighbor. It could have been. I keep an eye out on people that I don't know, but you take that and add it to the fact that we had been in town all day, and we had gone to several antique shops. And, I had one guy, because I talk to everybody. That's my thing. I talk to everybody. And if you're uncomfortable with me talking to you, even better, because you have to get to know that I'm just a person, just like you are. And this guy said, well, you must be brother with that big old boy sitting out there in the front, because my brother, who was special needs, he couldn't come in the store with us because he's so big, and we were afraid he was going to break something. People are watching you. And so that made that ash ceremony very stressful, because we didn't know at what point was there going to be a Confederate flag waving group of people coming up the road. And my brother, he's a big guy, but I'm probably more athletic, and my sisters would. So I have to, I mean, you have to think about all these things, which if you're not of a certain skin tone, you may not have to think about and may take it for granted. Oh, I'm just going to spread my dad's ashes. But no, we have to spread his ashes and then be concerned about some kind of a, Mississippi burning situation. And I tell people all the time, and it's not even a joke. If this was the 1950s, I promise you, I would have been hanging from a tree by now, because I don't stay in my lane. I'm here just like you are. I'm very blessed and fortunate that I'm not some small person who's just going to roll over and get taken. But no. It's very painful to talk about, but I know they're out there. They're out there. And so I have to think about that way back here all the time. All the time.
I mean, I'm just thinking, I've gotten tickets. I've been pulled over. I have been scared because I was about to get a ticket, or because I was wrong, or, but I can honestly say I've never been scared. Hey, this officer, it's dusk and this officer might mistreat me.
Right.
That's
yes.
not.
And that's the first thing you think about. Yeah. That's the first thing I think about. When you see a policeman drive by, lock up and just look straight ahead. If you do get pulled over, make sure your hands are on the dash. Make sure that all your information is out. Try to make it as smooth as possible, because it's literally can be a life or death situation. It could be a beatdown. You just don't know. I mean, one of my worst police stories, I was driving home from San Antonio and I saw an officer, and I completely support our men in blue. I do. I'm one of the guys that I'm like, y'all do a job I would never want to do. But I was driving, and then I locked eyes with him, and then he pulled on out and came barreling up behind me. So I did what anyone would do. I got over. And the moment I got over, woo! And he said, well, you were tailgating. You were tailgating that guy right there. And I'm like, officer, I pulled over so you could pass me. I'm just doing my good citizen thing. It's stuff like that. And I had to make myself small, try to be not as scary, but the anger that can come up. And I'm not even an angry guy. I'm not. But in those moments, you don't know. You just don't know. And if you haven't experienced that, you can't understand that. You just can't.
So Juan, that guy that you and I both know, I'm a hypothetical man or woman that you and I know in town, that they have their children joyfully, under your tutelage. They would love to have their daughter spend the night at your house. They would, if they saw someone mistreating you in town, they would fight that person. They are. But what would you want to say to them where they could? What can they do? What do they do with this? That they personally, maybe, like we said, are not racist, but what can they do now? What are they supposed to do?
You have to stand up for what's right. You have to. I mean, teaching your child that we're all children of God. We're all the same. We're just here, and we're made in His image. Try not to let these prejudices come up, and I know they do. We all have them, but lead by example on this, and just love each other. That's what we do. That's what we should be doing. If you discover something coming up inside of you, kind of talk about it and explain, because it's okay to be afraid of people, I guess. I mean, you're going to be afraid of somebody at some point, but figure out why you're afraid. And if it's just based upon because they're darker than I am, well, that's not a legitimate reason. Not at all. So try to figure out what's going on the inside with you as well. But yeah, leading by example. We teach our daughter, just love people. We're all people. So just love them. We're all people. It's tough. when you realize, just move on.
I think that you and we interested in how can Juan C. and Jeff and the people that differently, what can we do that practical things to help?
Well, it's funny because I'll go back to what you said at the very beginning. You know, this guy could be the mayor. Okay, no, I don't want to be the mayor. No, but one thing I do as much as possible is just say hi to people. I just say hi. I don't care. I'm not influenced by your social standing. I'm not influenced by how much fancy cars or how much. Just that simple act of saying hi to people has helped me over the years. People just need love. They just need love. And it might be kind of odd to say hi. I mean, at this point, it's just better for me to say hi to a complete stranger than to try to figure out if I know them. It's just, hey, how's it going? And it makes such a big difference in people's lives. And I think you'll see after a while that you're just saying hi to another loving human being. Try exterior stuff and just treat them like a human being. People want to be treated kindly. That's all they want, you know? And so I think if we all practice that, it's just saying hi. Now, I'm not saying put yourself in a precarious situation, but saying, hey, how's it going is not precarious. It's just reaching out to another human being. For me, that's where I start. That's how I like to treat people, is just to say hi. And so as Christians, we have to be very careful, because if you're out there and you're spreading the opposite, you know, what are you doing with what God said? What are you doing with, how are you presenting all Christians? Well, this guy is kind of haughty. They don't want to talk to me, you know, and that's kind of where I struggle. It's like we need to kind of maybe figure out what our witness is. And I'll be the first to say there's things that people say and do. We all have something. But if you're going out there and you're dropping the N-word amongst your friend, well, where's that witness? Where is that witness? Okay, so, and nobody's perfect, but you can start one word at a time and just treat people kind.
I love that, Juan. And I also think behind that is I know it's one thing to work with or say hi at Starbucks. There's a next level, which I call the table, which is, I think for a lot of people, and this goes all races, and I think it's natural, we tend to gravitate and hang out with our own, but I always challenge people, man, have you had people for different color or different status, social status at your table, in your home? That's kind of that next step. And so I do think you're right that, man, it's just some steps, maybe a little bit out of our comfort zone, and putting ourselves out there, and caring. And if you think anything after this that you and I specifically can do, or the churches that we go to, I did not propose to have the answers, but I just think, man, let's start somewhere.
Right. You got to do something.
Yeah.
Got to do something. So,
and I just want you to know, man, I personally care for you, and that I'm just thinking father to father, it breaks my heart, some of the things you share and the fears that you have for your daughter. And I don't even know what I can do about that, but to tell you that I care, love you as a brother. And man, if we going forward can figure out anything else to do in our city, man, I'm there with you.
All right. We'll work on that. Most definitely.
Any last word, Juan, to our people?
Well, I just want everybody to know that I think y'all are awesome. And thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all. It's been wonderful talking with you, Jeff. We don't get a chance to chat that much anymore, especially over the past few months. But this is not, to me, a denomination thing. This is just a people thing. We can reach out. We can do things for each other, and that's tough, but we can do this. And that's something I pledge to do every single day. Tackling the whole problem at once, not happening. But I can do one thing at once, and that's what I will continue to do. So definitely appreciate what you're doing.
Well, man, we're with you, and let's not make it that long again until we hang out, grab coffee or something.
All right, love it.
All right. Thanks, Juan C.
See y'all.
So, Logos family, I want to just spend the last couple of minutes with you and give you some verses that I think are very applicable to what we just talked about. These verses come out of Romans chapter 12, and Romans chapter 12, first verses 9 through 10. Listen to what Paul says. Let love be without hypocrisy. Detest evil. Cling to what is good. Love one another deeply as brothers and sisters. Outdo one another in showing honor. And if you drop down to, I think it's verse 15, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. We are not going to tonight solve the problems of racism in our city and in our country. That's well beyond us. Here's what I think we can do, is just what the verse said. Try to outdo one another in showing honor. Man, rejoice when our friends and our neighbors have graduations and weddings, and celebrate their victories in life when they overcome, and mourn. And so for some of you wondering, man, Jeff, what can I do? Maybe this moment is just to mourn, and not to give some great quote, but just say, man, I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. I stand with you. I will fight with you, and pray a lot and love a lot. And so I love you, Logos community family. I love all of our diversity. I think that's what the kingdom is supposed to look like. And so I just pray you'll join me in trying to take steps where we can. And I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. God bless.